instead of having the last chapter of the Iron Man today, I thought I would read you the last chapters that you've written. Okay, so we'll make a start. We'll see how many we get through. I'll try not to be too long, but here's the first one. So this is the chapter, the last chapter. The Iron Man goes to Australia to defeat the space-bat alien. He decides to dig a deep ditch and challenge him to a running race. He said yes, so the hole was now to the core of the world where there was lava. They started the race, and the Iron Man was behind the space-bat alien. The space-bat alien saw the hole but did not have time to stop, so he fell down the hole. He screamed and died. The people cheered, and they were all safe now. The Iron Man got all the iron in the world, and they still had to fix everything, so that was not too hard. All the villagers helped, and it was fixed in a year. Though in 2 years' time, the space-bat alien came back, so they had to do it all over again. This time, more homes were smashed, so it took them 9 million years, and all the planes were scrapped and given to the Iron Man. Okay, so that is one of them. Right, let's see if I can find you another one to read. This was, let's see. Where am I? Okay, here is the next one. The Iron Man, the final chapter. Once the Iron Man was airborne, after saying goodbye to Hogarth, he was off to save the world. The Iron Man was carried by 5 huge magnets attached to 5 very big, noisy helicopters. They carried him for over 4 days this way to reach Australia. They had to refuel on the way, and all the countries they refueled at were fantastically grateful that he was going to save the world. As the spacebat Angel Dragon came into view, everyone in the helicopter started shaking. But the Iron Man was feeling very, very confident. He had a plan. By now, there were many different news agencies and helicopters filming the mission. They watched as the Iron Man was lowered very softly onto the dragon's back. The scales on the dragon were so thick he didn't feel it. The dragon's back was slimy and disgusting. The Iron Man squidged as he started to walk along the dragon's back. The dragon's skin had lots of bumps which, to the Iron Man's eyes, looked the size of elephants. The Iron Man could hear some of the reporters in the helicopters over his head talking about him walking. By now, the dragon had started to wonder what the noise was, and he started roaring so loudly that the Iron Man fell backwards. It was like a huge tsunami of noise crashing over the Iron Man. It rocked some of the helicopters, and some of the reporters fell out of the sky, but luckily they had parachutes on and lived to film another day. The Iron Man crawled to his feet and began running as fast as he could. His legs made a clunking noise as he ran across the dragon's sticky long body. Eventually, the Iron Man reached the dragon's head. It had taken over an hour of running, but he made it. He carefully climbed into the dragon's ear. Once inside, he used his very big headlight eyes to see through the dark ear of the dragon and into its head. The dragon was flinching and roaring as he felt the Iron Man walk across his brain. The Iron Man then took a metal chip from his own brain and stuck it in the dragon's pink, massive brain. The chip contained orders for the dragon. When the Iron Man pressed a button on his arm, the dragon would fly off into space into a black hole and be forever gone. He plugged in the chip and ran back the way he came. Moments later, he was out and on top of the dragon's head. The dragon twitched as though lightning had struck him and started to move. He stood up on his hind legs. This made the Iron Man tumble to the floor, but luckily he landed just by the Great Barrier Reef with only a few loose bolts. As the dragon rose into the air, it looked like a giant cover had been taken off the earth. He flapped his wings, creating huge waves all across the world. Then he disappeared into the night, never to be seen again. The Iron Man was pushed ashore by one of the great waves. When he started walking through the streets, everyone started cheering and cheering. When he got to the helicopter pickup zone, the reporters asked him, "Mr. Iron Man, how did you do it?" But Iron Man just looked at them and blinked. Eventually, the helicopters collected him and took him home to the scrapyard where Hogarth welcomed him with open arms. After that, the Iron Man and Hogarth became famous, and the Iron Man never struggled to get metal again. Wasn't that brilliant? Okay, now here's the next one. You have to wait for my technology to catch up with us. It's getting there slowly. Here we go. Right. There we go. The Iron Man, Hogarth, and the villagers all got together and worked on a fantastically good plan to get rid of the dreadful, dangerous dragon. The plan included pink pixie dust and lots of it. So they went to negotiate with the fairies, which took a bit of time. They made a gigantic robotic apple and covered it with big trees and green grass on the outside. Inside the apple was an escape door where the fairies were hiding. The greedy dragon ate the giant apple. As soon as the pixie dust started to work, the fairies flew out into the dragon's belly just in time to see the dragon float away forever. Then everyone had a great celebration with bonfires, fireworks, singing and dancing. As for the Iron Man, he went back to his scrapyard for a bit of metal machinery to eat, of course. Okay, that's a great one too. Sorry, my technology's being a bit slow. This is the next one. Right, here we go. The Iron Man's challenge. Hogarth and the Iron Man sat down and began to make a plan. When they'd finished, they went to see an elf to help them with the magic potion. The elf requested some really peculiar ingredients: a cup of alpaca wool, not llama wool, hair from a horse's tail, 2 leaves from a willow tree, a shark's tooth, and 6 drops of lemon juice. They thanked the elf and set off to find the space bat angel dragon. They found him in Australia, fast asleep on his tummy with his long tongue sticking out. They tiptoed as quietly as a mouse over to his tongue and very carefully, taking the potion out of the brown leather bag, then they poured it onto the pink gooey tongue. After a few minutes, the dragon woke up not feeling so well. He thought he may just be a bit hungry, so he ate 2 whole forests. The more he ate, the worse he felt. What a surprise! The magic potion gave him an allergic reaction to everything on earth. Eventually, he left and everyone got what they wanted. The Iron Man got his scrapyard of metal, and as for the villagers and Hogarth, well, they went back to their ordinary lives. Okay, another great story. Right, now it's going to take a while to get the next one loaded up. Let's see if I can do it on here. Right. Sorry about the time difference. Okay, hopefully this one's going to work. Taking its time, here we go. After the Iron Man and Hogarth embarked on their journey, they finally reached Australia. To get there, they propelled underwater so they were not seen. They also brought with them a huge cup of tea. They decided to make their headquarters in a cave. They'd made a plan first. Along with the food, they would serve tea, as they found out that tea would make him fall asleep for 1 minute, and the tea will open up his weak point. The Iron Man will stab him with a long piece of metal. After making the plan, they set off and found the food being given to him. So they went up to him and gave him the tea, and then he fainted. So the Iron Man rushed towards the dragon with a burning rage in his eyes. Stab! Iron Man had killed the dragon. When he went home, he got a statue made of him and he ran a recycling yard. I quite like the ending of that one. Okay, I'll just see. Right. I'll read maybe one more today, and then maybe we'll have some more on another day. Just waiting for this to... Okay, this one I should... I can't read it. Sorry, taking ages. Here's the next one. Oh, somewhere. No, it's not. Here we go. It was a misty morning. Mist hung silently in the air like a curtain, so thick they could not see through the mist. It was early, and there was not a sound. Not even the birds were singing. The air was cold and damp, making everyone shiver and pull their clothing tight to keep warm. The boats out at sea were surrounded by the mist. The crew could taste the salty sea air, and the sea was like a shining glass mirror. Not even a single wave was seen. Everything was quiet. All of a sudden, the mist started to fade away, and the crews became aware of the terrifying sound of the dragon angrily blowing away the mist. As the mist cleared, they saw the Spaceboat Angel Dragon awakening from its slumber. It was rising slowly above the mountains. First they saw its enormous head with its glaring fiery eyes, followed by its colossal body, even bigger than the mountains. The dragon opened its mouth and breathed a fountain of flickering fire up into the air, lighting up the early morning sky. The boats started their roaring engines and speedily made their way across the sea to the shore towards the dragon. The crew gathered on the decks, and bravely they began to get their weapons ready to fire. They had guns, bows and arrows, catapults, and even giant cannons, everything they needed to kill the dragon. The Iron Man stood bravely on the bow of the ship at the front, leading the way. As they nervously reached the shore, they clambered onto the land. Just then the Iron Man thrust his fist up into the air, and the crew began to shout loudly, "Attack!" The Iron Man's eyes glowed red as everyone began to fire their weapons. Guns, catapults, bows and arrows, all of the weapons determined to kill the dragon. The dragon roared in pain and anger and breathed fire one last time before he was shot by a gun. He fell roaring in pain, and his still lifeless body lay in the ocean. The crews cheered, and the Iron Man was picked up by Hogarth, his family, and the people he was so grateful. They were smiling and cheering and celebrated being set free from the dragon by having a huge party. So that was pretty cool too, wasn't it? Okay, this is another one. The Iron Man versus the Spaceboat Angel Dragon. Iron Man arrives in Australia on a pontoon boat, and he shouts at the Spaceboat Angel Dragon and said, "Get out of here!" But the Spaceboat only hears squeaking like a mouse. Iron Man punches Spaceboat, but it feels like a tickle. Iron Man says to the scared people, "Push him over!" Spaceboat thought, "They'll never push me over," but millions of people helped. So it was easy. When the Spaceboat was on the floor, they tied him to the floor using rope, and they put 1,000 million missiles, TNT and bombs on him. They lit the bombs and ran, but he thought it was a tickle. He was not hurt, but the next second he was out of the ropes and finished the fight by squashing Iron Man with his foot. The people ran onto the pontoon and escaped. The remaining people got killed like Iron Man, and the Spaceboat ruled over Australia forever. So there's a different ending to you where the Iron Man doesn't win. Okay, let's try another one. I quite like that one because it was a bit out there. Okay, this one's called the Otijing story. The Spaceboat Angel Dragon was hungry. They had 1 day till he would eat them, and 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 10, 5, 2 minutes. It's time. He was heading for France in a small village called Otijing. It has a school, a pub, a park, and he was going to the school when he was close. He heard a story. He felt very relaxed. He was hearing laughter. He'd never heard laughter, and he didn't want to hear it again. Suddenly the Iron Man and 8 more children came running out. They were all listening to a story, and all of them were stroking a sweet, cute little puppy. Slowly, the Spaceboat Angel Dragon was melting. Lots and lots of space blood came flooding the little village. It was the sticky green blood, but the Iron Man loved it. He was gulping it down. I think he found his new favourite food, and the next day he was in the newspaper. Okay, so another alternative ending. Right, here's another one. Hogarth asks the Iron Man to help him get rid of the Bat Angel Dragon. The Iron Man says yes and flies to Australia, and it takes him over 2 days. On his journey, he flew over France, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and the Indian Ocean. The weather was different in every country. In France it was snowy, in Turkey it was very hot, and in the Indian Ocean he could see lots of dolphins and whales. Iron Man defeats the dragon by blasting mega lava balls onto the Bat Angel Dragon's feet. This tickles him, making him laugh so much he gets very angry. He follows the Iron Man around the burning sun 100 times and melts the Bat Angel Dragon away. The Iron Man lives, and the people are very over the moon and never ever doubt the Iron Man again. The Iron Man is their hero. Okay, now I'm going to leave it there because I've been reading for 15 minutes. So those are some of the endings that you've come up with, and we'll hear the rest of them on Monday. I hope you enjoyed that. Now it's time for you. You've got about 15 minutes left to read your own book today. Okay,